Hi, everybody. Evan Narcisse and Steven Totilo back again to talk about comics. There was a little bit of confusion in the comments last time about who's who.
Yeah, I'm Evan.
Yeah,
No?
you just want to be taller.
I do. I wish I was taller.
I'm Evan. He's Steven. And we are talking about comics here today. We're talking about three comics: Velvet #1, the first two issues of Zero, and Saga number whatever number it is.
14?
14, yeah, the latest issue of Saga. It's pure coincidence that they're three Image comics, but we were sitting around talking about what we want to talk about, and they all happen to be Image comics.
Not true. You tell me what to read, and then I read
Yeah,
it.
but no.
Sit around talking about what to talk about. He assigns me comics.
I threw a bunch out there.
Happily, we like similar enough stuff that I usually own about half of what he's recommending. And so I had picked up Zero already because the writer of that, Al Scott, who I didn't know anything about, had just had a very short run on Suicide Squad before DC kicked him out.
Right.
Ed Brubaker had done Velvet, so I'd already been interested in that because I like Fatal and some of the other stuff he'd done. And Saga, yeah, everybody gets Saga. Saga's cool. So
Right.
yeah, I guess maybe I had all of them already. So yeah, that's fine. But if you want to talk about Velvet?
Yeah, Velvet. I was really looking forward to
Yeah.
because I'm a big Brubaker fan. He's somebody that's managed to work in a bunch of different genres. Like he's done straight ahead superhero work. He had a great run on Captain America and Daredevil, among other stuff, at Marvel. And he's done great stuff with DC. He had Gotham Central, which is a book that I have a lot of love for. He's also done like more noirish.
Oh, Rocco, wasn't it? Gotham Central?
Gotham Central was Rucka and Brubaker.
Was it?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I saw that as a Rucka book, but that's okay. Yeah. I mean, he definitely does like a lot of the different sort of classic genres.
Right.
Because I thought that Captain America was almost like a spy thriller in a way.
Exactly.
Or something
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
So Velvet is continuing in that tradition. Obviously, it's a creator-owned character, something that he and his partner Steve Epting came up with themselves, and it's basically a riff on the classic James Bond formula, right?
Right, yeah. It's what if Moneypenny, the secretary, actually was like the most badass assassin,
Right.
Or secret agent. I've been playing too much Assassin's Creed of all of them, and so yeah. But it's not like that's so much of a surprise. I mean, we know that almost from the cover.
Right.
That's the deal.
The thing that was most interesting to me was that this idea, the meta idea of Bond changing, the role of Bond changing, like eventually there's a new Bond every couple of years,
Right.
that being built into the narrative of the comic. There was a secret agent who gets killed, who's kind of like the current like alpha male, alpha predator.
Right.
And then there was a guy who came before him who's kind of put out to pasture and gets involved in the plot. So I really like the idea that there's somebody's got to be the top dog for a different era.
Yeah, I mean the Bond lore has like other 00s, like they've had 006 and 00 whatever, and they even have them in at least the movies. I don't read I haven't read the Ian Fleming books, but they don't really ever have. I think it's all like a boys' club as well. So
Right.
there's a bit of gender, sort of challenging gender stereotype thing going on in this. Brubaker for me, I never really warmed to the Captain America stuff, and I never touched like the X-Men things that he'd done, things of that nature. But I had really liked Sleeper, which he'd done with Sean Phillips, which he'd done for, I think, Wildstorm, so one of the eventual subsidiaries of DC, X-Image imprint. And he's done Fatal, which
Right.
is another Image series. And they're like these good noirish books that I think he, better than maybe some of his contemporaries like Greg Rucka, while telling serialized fiction in these sort of heavy non-superhero genres, manages, though, to provide satisfying chapter-by-chapter storytelling.
Right.
And I felt like this was a good first chapter of introducing me to this not-so-secret assassin, or I keep saying that, not-so-secret agent, and establishing some of the stakes of double crosses and stuff like that. It doesn't feel as special to me, though, as Fatal, which
Right.
was doing a bit more with both supernatural and noir and sort of taking what should have just been a stereotype of a character, the femme fatale, and saying,
Right.
actually, she's a real character and doing stuff. I don't know if this is going to have as much of a mileage from the concept.
Yeah, I think as we learn more about the lead character, that's going to kind of grow out of it, right? Because the last page ends with this big revelation that she herself has this secret past that we don't know anything about. We're learning out about the secret past of these other characters that she's interacting with, but we don't know anything about her. But I think there's definitely enough there to keep me coming back. The art is amazing. Epting is a master of drawing like not just action, but also like interpersonal dynamics. So I'm definitely going to show up for another issue.
Okay, art's a bit too clinical for me, but.
Too clinical, huh?
Well, yeah, a little cold.
Cold.
Icy.
It's funny. I've never thought that about Epting whatsoever.
Yeah, well.
All right. To each his own.
Thank you.
But speaking about art,
Yeah.
I think art is part of the central part of the experience for this next book that we're talking about, which is Zero. There's been 2 issues out so far.
Yeah.
It's like you said, by Alice Cott. He's done a really short but good run on Suicide Squad, a book which may or may not be a video game, basis for a video game.
Yeah, they've been teasing it.
But now this is his own thing, and the central premise here is that we're following this soldier, this Black Ops operative. This Black Ops operative is redundant. This Black Ops soldier, and we meet him in the first issue in the middle of a mission where he's supposed to take down a Palestinian enhanced terrorist. This is basically like a cyborg.
Near future, implants and whatnot, and he's in Gaza, I think, and it's a Hamas militant with a thing in his chest versus an Israeli super soldier as well.
It's interesting because it's a very different approach in the first 2 issues of this book. The first one is kind of a very gritty, like right boots on the ground, soldier's point of view story.
Very graphic.
Super graphic. And the second issue flashes us back to the lead character's training back in Ireland as a member of some kind of counterinsurgency force where they start training them from when you're kids. Right. The artwork is very different. I like the artwork in the first issue a lot more than the second issue. But part of me has to wonder like how intentional that is. What did you think about the difference in the art and the difference in the tone?
Yeah, I apologize. I think we should have been more prepared, and we don't have the artist names here, but he'll write them in the description. Right?
Yeah,
he'll do that.
I'll do that.
I don't write these articles. I just show up for the shoot, and
nice.
then I run off and do something else. But the art in the first is very sort of gritty, like he's saying, and realistic. And there's something cartoonish or almost satirical about the artwork in the second issue. And they're dealing with essentially like a child soldier training program in a way. I mean, you can pretty it up and you can say, oh, they're going to be like special agents, but they're being enlisted as children.
Yeah,
and
learning how to kill.
Right, and the whole thing is, will a boy, if he's sent out on a mission, do you send them out when they're like 10 years old or 15 years old or whatever he is? Do you send them out at that age to kill, and what happens if you do that?
Right.
In both issues, like I was saying with Velvet as well, a satisfying chapter.
Right.
These 2 issues in particular, I felt like I got an entire story in each one, and actually you could read either one. And maybe if the first one you'd feel like it was a little incomplete, because what does it really amount to?
Right.
But the second one in particular is a strong single tale is told in it. I do feel that when I'm reading Velvet and then I'm reading something like this, that there's always that sense of, well, what do these people who often have written superheroes before, what do they do when they don't have to write superheroes? And in a way, they're still writing superheroes, right? They're still writing about these like super capable, ultra skilled individuals who may be flawed in some ways, feet of clay and what have you, and certainly they can do more with the characters, and they don't have to just go with sort of cheap publishing tactics like killing Captain America and bringing him back. But still, there is a feeling I get from a lot of these, even image creators, that they're kind of still doing superheroes, and I would like to feel like they're breaking a little bit further away from that, and they're a little bit less in love with the story about an ultra awesome, potent character. And the fact that these are both sort of in a way secret agent kind of stories also makes them, sort of brings them back toward each other in a way that I'd rather the image books that I'm reading, and really all the books I'm reading, sort of flourish in more diverse directions.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I feel like is very of the moment with regard to like comics work that isn't superhero centric. It's like, okay, you have this ultra capable character, and one of the ways that super violence and the bigger picture things play out is this idea of like human enhancement and government involvement, and how big are these threads that kind of bind society together. And these books are both coming at it in similar ways. You both have like these individuals who decide to break from the norm, and the consequences that come out from that. They're presented as heroic, but it's still very much the same kind of mechanical structure in these books. I want to get your thoughts on that one short training scene where they're playing video games to desensitize them to killing.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, well, we know that that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
It's been much easier for me to kill people ever since I started playing video games.
Exactly.
I have like no remorse whatsoever now.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's an easy bit of shorthand, I guess, but it did make me feel a little bit annoyed at how it plays into these kind of the media hype around video games. I wanted better than that, but what can I say? Last book we want to talk about is Saga, which is obviously one of the best books in the last couple of years of comics. The reason I want to talk about it is because this issue really hit home for me in that it's about a family that's suffered a great tragedy and how they're dealing with that. But the thing that struck home for me is like the two main characters and how they're dealing with, oh crap, we're parents now and we've got to change things about our lives and we got another life to worry about. And that really hit home for me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
I just read the two most recent issues this morning, so they're kind of blurring together for me. But these are part of the, and they're either 13 and 14 or 14 and 15. I'm honestly actually I'm not sure which numbers we're up to. But for those who don't know, by the way, Saga, science fiction. It's a guy and a girl from two different alien races that are at war with each other. These two fall in love. They have a kid. This is all known by the first issue. And they've been on the run ever since. Very interesting bounty hunters going after them, and extended families get involved in this saga.
Right.
Brian K. Vaughan is the writer, and Fiona Staples is the extraordinary artist on this.
Yeah.
One thing, by the way, this book is nothing like any superhero books being published. It doesn't feel like it's a superhero book in out of the tights, basically.
Right.
And it's really very much a love story operating on a couple different levels, mostly romantic love, but also I guess you could expand that out to familial love because you have a number of father-daughter, mother-daughter relationships in there, but a lot of both sort of the mourning of the loss of a significant other, the possibly kindling of new romance, and all that kind of swirling around all the time, which really makes this, it's a romance book, and it's interesting and enjoyable to read, and Fiona Staples' art is just fantastic, very sort of expressive, but fluid, unbusy, and dynamic, and just a great, not stylish in the sense that it's stylized, but a great sense of style to everything. All of her designs are really good. And I have to say that I lost my train of thought. I don't know what I have to say, but I'll think about it. But you pontificate a little bit about Saga.
It's funny. One of the things that comes up in this issue is this idea of like consequences, right? Like you've got a young person to watch, and that changes what you do with your own life. And one of the main characters, the bounty hunter that's chasing them, the Will, yeah, he's one of the best characters in the book, and in a book full of great characters. But you turn around, you don't watch what your kid is doing, and as a new parent, something I'm very familiar with, and all of a sudden, like really crappy consequences come out as a result, like to the point where something that could not kill just your child, but also yourself, happens. And it was a really stunning moment. I was like, oh, okay, this is hitting on stuff that's happening in my own life that makes me feel like really, really not good. Not that anything horrible has happened to my kid, but it's like when you're a parent, you do think about what do I need to protect them from? What do I know? What don't I know? And that was something that was done really, really well in a subtle way, I thought.
Yeah, so something that had come up in the letter column of the issue. It's a great letter column, by the way. Saga, not only one of the best comics out, but arguably the best letter column as well. And they got, Brian K. Vaughan was fielding complaints, at least from one reader, maybe more, saying that they felt that all of his male protagonists traditionally were they weren't tough enough. They were
beta males.
Yeah, they were beta males. They were, if not effeminate, but just not really strong leading men. They were emo and feely and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't really think of that before, but I do think that may be a type, at least to what he's writing. And it's not an invalid persona to write. God forbid we don't have just all these alpha males I'm just complaining about in a lot of the other superhero books. But it is now something that is jumping out to me every time that I read it. And when I was reading Velvet, I was thinking about the sense that Velvet, Brubaker's writing 2 books that have lead female protagonists, and this is still fairly unusual in comic books. Probably more common than it is with video games or something like that. But it's still something you notice, and therefore I start thinking, okay, well, why does he have a lead female protagonist? Unfortunately, for better or worse, it's not just a given. And so then I noticed, I felt like Velvet was sort of like kind of a Mary Sue, right? Kind of like supposed to be possibly everything that Ed Brubaker would want his female lady assassin to be, or whatever, something like that. She's super capable, ass kicker, hot, whatever, with a dark past, but a love for, flirting with all the guys and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so that's got me thinking about, Marco, is that the name of the guy in Saga?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got me thinking, like, who is this type of man vis-a-vis Brian K. Vaughan? Is it like, is that him? Is that who he wants to be or whatever? Yeah. But it's so consistent from like Y: The Last Man to this. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
The one counter to that assertion would be the lead character, I think, of Ex Machina, who was more of like a alpha male, like to the point where he was like
the superhero mayor.
Yeah, the superhero mayor who could talk to machines.
Yes,
but I mean, he'd be a great character. He wound up being miserable too, though, in a different way. But he was definitely somebody who had more agency, as we kind of typically understand it, in comic book character construction. There's definitely something to think about there, but it's still such a great book. I mean,
and all the characters are relatable. I mean, the fact that these guys are not these like uber guys or whatever makes it so that when I'm reading this comic, it's not some sort of male power fantasy, which is what I'm being exposed to when I'm reading Green Lantern or Hawkman or even Daredevil or something like that. And also just he writes just the family of characters really well, and they all have very relatable urges and anxieties and whatnot, and he writes kids well too. So it's just a splendid book, and crazy stuff happens on the last page of like every issue.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a master of cliffhangers.
Really?
Yeah. He's been for years. So that's our take on 3 Image books. Go get them. Go read about them. Go talk about them. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Remember that memory you have, those fleeting images, the sounds, the smells, the emotion of the past. It can all come flooding back, as if it happened yesterday. Now even the sweet release of death won't stop our memories. Now our very souls can be uploaded to the cloud,